Hi, my name is James Nielsen. This is for FTH212, the week 5 assignment. Today's date is April 20th, 2025. In this video, I'll be changing out some springs and I will also be polishing up the trigger mechanism in my PSA dagger. Now, before we get started, I'll go ahead and show clear. Like you can see, we have no magazine in our magazine well, and we have no ammunition in our chamber. This firearm is clear and safe. And also, I'd like to say that there is no live ammunition present on my workbench or in my work area. With that said, we can go ahead and get started. So part one of this, I'm gonna go ahead and field strip this. I'm gonna go ahead and inspect all the trigger mechanism and see where it needs to be polished up. And we'll go ahead and I'll put it back together. I'm going to take a trigger pull measurement and I'll come back with you guys and share the results. All right, before we dive into that trigger pull measurement, I just want to talk about some of the areas that could possibly need improving to make the trigger a little bit smoother. You got the striker plunger here, and you can see just from the factory it kind of has a rough edge. It's got a couple grooves in it. You could probably smooth that out and make it a little bit smoother for the trigger bar to actually glide against. Again, you probably don't want to take too much material off, but I think you can definitely smooth it out. Again, and then on top of the trigger bar here in that same location that rides on that, if you look really closely down here, you can see all the imperfections in the metal, and I think just smoothing that out is going to help out quite a bit. And then as well as where the trigger bar rides in here, in between the connector and like the rail piece. But as far as that goes, we can polish that up, we can smooth that all out, and then should make it a little bit smoother. But we'll go ahead and get this reassembled. We'll take a trigger pull measurement, and I'll be back with you guys to let you know what that comes out to be. I will go ahead and move on to part two. I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing disassembled and get everything marked up with some layout dye, and I'll be back to show you guys that. All right, so I have everything marked out with our layout fluid. As you can see here, I have the top of the striker plunger covered, and then I also have our striker like sear surface covered. And then on our trigger bar, I also have the area which contacts the striker plunger, and then we also have the sear surface on our cruciform here, as well as the inside and outside of the rear of the trigger bar, where it's going to contact the connector, which I have also added layout dye onto, and where the other side is also going to contact on the inside of the frame here. Now we could probably also polish that up on the inside here too, but making this extra smooth should make that glide against that metal that much better as well. So those are the areas. I'm probably also going to polish up just a little bit, smooth out the inside of the trigger pin, and the inside of the left side of the locking block, and just a little bit here to smooth this out on our slide catch. And I might even go as well as taking a little bit of sandpaper and smoothing out just the edges of each side of the trigger here. I don't have any 1000 grit, but I do have a little bit of 600 grit that's a little bit more worn out, so it should be plenty smooth to just lightly tackle that a little bit. So we'll go ahead and get this reassembled. I'm gonna cycle it a bunch of times, and we'll come back and check out the layout fluid. All right, so I've completely disassembled the firearm again, and I've taken a look at all of our rub marks here on our layout dye, and it honestly doesn't look too bad. I cycled it way more than 10 times. I cycled it quite a bit. You can see, you're probably not going to see in the camera, but the striker plunger doesn't seem like it really has too much wear against it. I can see a little bit where it kind of shined up a tiny bit. The connector, you can definitely see where quite a bit got rubbed off on the connector, so that's definitely going to be an area that we're going to want to polish up, smooth out. On the top of the trigger bar here, the part that rides up against the striker plunger, there's a little bit of wear there, not too bad. You can tell this isn't a very uniform surface by looking at it closely, So we'll go ahead and give that a nice smooth finish. And then again on the inside here and on this side here, it's definitely got a little bit of wear marks. The layout die has definitely scraped off quite a bit. Also looking at our striker, we do have a pretty nice even patch, and it looks like it cleaned off the layout die pretty nicely. So I don't know if I would have actually messed with those surfaces at all. I'd probably just leave them. They are pretty smooth. It looks pretty, I think if you look very closely, you can see some ridges in it, so you can maybe go very, very lightly with it and clean it up, but those surfaces actually look pretty nice to me. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and polish all these areas up. Alright, so I thought I'd bring in and at least show you the trigger bar. You know, you can pretty see it's kind of got a dull finish there. It's going to be a little hard to see those surfaces there, but kind of a dull finish. Again, on this side as well, you can actually see a little bit of wear marks right there. And so we'll go ahead and get this polished up, and then I'll show you guys the results. Alright, so as you can kind of tell there, it's got quite a bit of good shine to it now on the surface there, as well as on that side. The phone's not really wanting to focus very well, but the front surface here has a really nice shine to it. Not overly mirror polished, but it's got a nice shine to it, as well as the top of the trigger bar here that engages our striker plunger. Also the connector here got a nice polish to it. And then I also did, like I said, I was gonna do the inside of the little frame rail piece here. Probably not gonna really be able to see that too well, but that's just nice little polish in there. I didn't go over it with the stone. I just polished it up with the flits and the rotary tool. I also smoothed out the inside portion of the trigger pin. I kind of just smoothed out both sides of the locking block where the trigger pin and everything all gets mounted together, as well as our slide stop. Just kind of polished those up, just to make them nice and smooth, give everything the least resistance as possible, as well as kind of lightly sanded on our trigger shoe itself here. So with that said, I didn't do anything with the striker plunger. I didn't see that much wear there. I don't think it's going to be that much of an improvement to change anything there, so I'm just left that alone. So now I'm going to go ahead and get this thing reassembled. I'll take some trigger pull measurements, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss how it feels and what the trigger pull, if it changed at all. So I'll be back with you guys here in a minute. All right, so I have the dagger all together. Go ahead and show clear here. The magazine, though there is no magazine inserted, no round in the chamber. The firearm is clear and safe. I just got done with the trigger pull measurements after the polishing, and I'm actually pretty surprised. I'm actually getting some trigger pulls down into the 2.5 range, and still kind of in that 3 pound range. But I don't know if it's just, this trigger is kind of hard to get with that, so I don't know if that's just me pulling on it wrong or what, but I was pretty consistently getting between 2.5 to 3 pounds. But it honestly, it does feel very smooth. Even when I'm letting out the trigger, it has less of that stickiness, and coming in, it has a little bit less stickiness. And it just comes into a nice clean break. So it does feel quite a bit nicer. I do have another dagger here that the trigger is completely stock. It would be interesting to actually compare these two after the fact. And with that said, we're gonna go ahead also here and install some reduced power springs. I'm not sure what striker spring I'm gonna pop in yet. I was actually kind of messing with this earlier, testing out a couple of the different springs, and I honestly think the 3 pound spring in here feels very similar to the factory spring. So I may try to go down to the 2 pound spring, see how that actually feels. But with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing disassembled again. We'll go ahead and throw these springs in. We're also gonna go ahead and throw in our Ghost 3.5 Evo Elite connector, and we'll be back to check out the trigger pull measurement again and see how the trigger feels. All right, I am back. Go ahead and show clear here. We have no magazine inserted, no ammunition in our chamber. This firearm is clear and safe. I have installed the reduced power springs. I decided to go with the 2-pound striker spring just to test it out. I got the trigger return spring in and the lightweight striker plunger spring installed. I also installed the ghost connector, which took a long time of hand fitting, filing, taking it apart a whole bunch of times trying to get that fit right. I do finally have it set where it does break. I did just test the trigger pull on it, and it's coming in around 4.5 pounds, so it went up. But it does feel really smooth, crisp, and you do have a really nice clean break on it with a nice reset. I'm not sure if the higher weight is also still due to maybe I need to still work on that connector just a tiny bit more. I'm not sure, but as of right now, yeah, I don't know. I think I might have to do a little bit more work on that connector. I'm not 100% sure. I'm gonna probably look into it a little bit, but as far as it goes, it feels pretty good. I was comparing it to my factory trigger, and honestly, like I said, honestly, I do like the factory trigger on these. I would have had no complaints with it, so it's gonna be fun to compare this one to that one. And like I said, I might still have to do a little tweaking on this one. But other than that, part 5, is there any other modifications to the trigger to improve the weight or the feel that I would do? And I would say no. I like the factory trigger enough to the point where I wouldn't even do any of this trigger work for my own personal gun. And until I get this feeling a little bit better, maybe if I'm working on that connector, do a little bit more research on it, I'm not sure if it was worth all the time in installing the connector, but I would say the polishing was definitely worthwhile as far as like the trigger bar goes. But that's all I have for you, and thanks for watching.